This is Andy Parole for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm joined by promoter Eddie Hearn. Eddie, it's been another quiet weekend for yourself. What have you been up to?
Actually, yeah, it's been nice. A lot of time with the family, which has been good, and managed to pick up the Spence-Porter fight on Sunday on Sky Sports. When I woke up, great fight. I just said in an interview there, like every great fight is a big shot in the arm for boxing. You know, because when you're selling boxing, you've got to tell people how entertaining, how great it is. So when there's a great fight, it's just great for the sport in general, and you know, a really good welterweight fight, and just been relaxing, getting ready, go to New York tomorrow for Golovkin against Derevyanchenko, and then Chicago the week after for Usyk, and then Newcastle, and then the O2, and then Manchester, and then LA, and then another week off on the 16th of November. So yeah, good little run coming up.
So we may not see you for a couple of months then, Eddie, from the sounds.
Not unless you're stateside. Yeah. I'll be back for Newcastle. You'll see me in Newcastle.
We've kind of started backwards, but as you mentioned the Errol Spence-Sean Porter fight, I just wanted to start off with that. What was your thoughts on the fight, Eddie?
Good fight. I picked Errol Spence to win on points. I think probably most people did, so I'm not going to claim that as a stunning pick. But I don't know. I don't know. I think Sean Porter's tough to look good against, but I don't know if Errol Spence is really improving that much. I don't know whether that's because maybe he's big at the weight and he's starting to struggle at the weight a little bit. I mean, he made a few comments on Twitter yesterday about ballooning during camp and stuff like that. So obviously, it was tough for him. But as a fan, I've got a lot of questions saying who wins, Crawford or Spence. And on that performance, I would say Terence Crawford. I might have been edging to Errol Spence before that fight, but great fighter, good fight. I want to see Errol Spence against Crawford, but if not, I want to see Errol Spence against Pacquiao. That's for me the fight to make. I know they're talking about Danny Garcia. I think it's a good fight, not really the one that stands out for me to make. But the difficulty now is I think when you're in the pay-per-view echelons, and Errol Spence is going to want double-digit millions per fight, you've got to be in mega fights, and I think Pacquiao is one of those fights.
How did you score the fight, Eddie? Obviously, it was a split decision. A lot of people kind of differ in views over social media.
I had Spence winning by a couple of rounds. Again, Porter, it's like, let's not forget, Kell Brook beat Sean Porter in LA, many moons ago, and that was a close fight. But the need to work always come from Kell. Sean Porter's relentless, he's walking you down. But if you watch it back, the sharp 1-2s and the clean punches come from Kell Brook, and that was quite similar in the Errol Spence performance as well. So close fight, very competitive fight, but just had Errol Spence edging it out.
Now, obviously, you mentioned Danny Garcia there. All the indications from reading various articles, etc., seem to be that is the fight. Your thoughts on that if it was to happen? I
think that Danny Garcia is a great fighter. It's not the welterweight fight that stands out for me to make, but they can keep doing these round robins forever. You know what I mean? They've got so many welterweights, PBC. They've got Mikey Garcia, they've got Pacquiao, they've got Thurman, they've got Danny Garcia. I mean, they've got Josecito Lopez, just had a good win, against John Molina. So they've got loads of stock there that they can keep matching. But as a fan, I want to see Errol Spence against Terence Crawford. I think now what happens is, I've been there, in positions like top ranker in with Crawford. It's very difficult because you're getting frozen out. They ain't going to give you nothing. The other side, because they want to sign Terence Crawford, right? So it's like a case of, Bob, what are you delivering? So Spence has just beaten Porter. He's now got Pacquiao. He's got Danny Garcia. What have you got, Terence? Terence, you got Kavaliauskas on December the 14th. He's going to get bored soon, and he's only boxed once this year in April, and I just feel like all the momentum is for, as Terence says, that side of the street, whereas Terence, for me, should be the superstar. He should be the one that everybody's calling the A side, and right now he's not, because his profile's not up there. He's not got the activity, and he's not been in the fights. So, I want to see Crawford moving. I love Terence Crawford. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a brilliant fighter, and I think he beats Errol Spence, to be honest, and I want to see it.
With what you've just said in mind, do you think there's that risk then that top rank and Bob Arum may lose Terence Crawford?
I'm guessing he's under a long-term contract, so I doubt it. But you can lose a fighter contractually, and you can lose a fighter in terms of sort of just momentum and relationships. And if I'm Terence Crawford right now, I'm saying, look, I'm fast turning into the B side, and I think I should be the A side. But you can't be the A side fighting Amir Khan and fighting Kavaliauskas. That's his year. Errol Spence's year has been Mikey Garcia and Sean Porter. That's a good year, right? So, I hope they can get it made. Look, Bob Arum and Al Heyman, they've made the Fury Wilder fight. Why can't they make that fight?
Obviously, on the undercard this weekend, we saw David Benavidez stop Anthony Durrell. What was your thoughts on Benavidez's performance?
I like Benavidez a lot. I think he's a great fighter. He's huge at the weight, as is Callum Smith. On the weekend, I wrote to Maurizio Suleiman and said, what's happening with the WBC Diamond Belt? I mean, we won this Diamond Belt, and the plan was always that we would fight the WBC World Champion. At last year's convention in Ukraine, I lobbied for Benavidez to fight Callum Smith. Unfortunately, Benavidez just had a drug charge, and he relinquished the belt. Durrell boxed Yildirim. They had a controversial fight. Now Yildirim is the mandatory. So what I'm saying is, can the winner of Yildirim Benavidez please be ordered to fight Callum Smith? That's what we want. Otherwise, why have we? This is the reason we're here. So that's a great fight for Callum Smith. Obviously, he's got to get past John Ryder, but Benavidez is good. I mean, I think Durrell's had his day, but Benavidez is a very good fighter.
Just on your opinion, out of the other world champions, of Benavidez, Plant and Billy Joe, who do you think poses Callum the most threat?
Probably Billy Joe, style-wise. I think he probably causes everybody the most threat. Very, very awkward. Obviously, he's a middleweight coming up to super middleweight. Benavidez, Callum Smith's a great fight. Great fight. Two huge super middleweights. I rate Caleb Plant as well. He's probably the one who's most underrated at 168 because no one really talks about him that much. He's a good fighter whose category he's a strong competitor. No one really wanted to fight him, and he did, and he beat him well. So I think they're all great champions. A great division. We just got to get them fighting each other.
On to Callum Smith and this Liverpool card, Eddie. John Ryder, the mandatory challenger. Obviously, I spoke to Callum about it previously. What was the decision behind just going straight in with this mandatory? Was there ever a possibility of facing somebody else in the meantime?
Yeah, there was. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, really. I wanted to do Callum Smith on a Saturday night fight night. We get a lot of stick about all the top fighters, the world, they're on the pay-per-view, and that's because they're on a lot of money. So part of the delay was trying to work the financials with Sky to make sure that we could put Callum Smith on a Saturday night fight night. It's what he needs for his career. It's what the fans want. Then, being quite honest, when you're paying a fighter a lot of money, you start looking at an opponent thinking, who can we get who's a little bit cheaper, right? Then I started thinking, if we're bringing Callum Smith back to the arena and it's a homecoming fight and we're trying to sell it to the people of Liverpool and British fans and we make a shit fight, they'll only moan anyway. So stop being a tight bastard, Hearn. Stick your dough in and make the mandatory fight now. John Ryder's on a brilliant run of wins. Arguably one of the best runner wins at 168. Because there have been 4 KO wins. Jamie Cox, Patrick Nielsen, Sorokin and Akaway. He's looked brilliant in his last 4 fights. So he's with us. I wanted to deliver him a world title fight. I said to Callum, look, rather than fighting someone no one's ever heard of that you might get stick for, why not just face your mandatory and John Ryder? He said, fine. I mean, we've still had stick for the fight. Oh, John Ryder, that's a ridiculous fight. It's like, he's mandatory. Look at his recent wins. He's one of the top contenders in the 168 division. And he really fancies this fight. It's going to be a really tough fight. And if we're going to make a Saturday night fight night with a world championship fight, do it for a domestic world championship fight as well. It's always much, much bigger. So that was the thoughts behind it. We've got it done. November 23rd. Great card as well. It's going to be rammed in the Echo. And it's good to see a Londoner against a Liverpool Scouse fighter going for the World Championship and the number 1 spot in the division.
What are your thoughts on the fight itself and how do you see it kind of playing out and their styles clashing or jelly?
I think it's pretty easy. John Ryder's got to get on the inside. Now, anyone that boxes Callum Smith at distance is in a lot of trouble. He's got huge reach, he's got great power as well, and all of John's victories recently have been once he's got on the inside, he's worked the body, and he's a nightmare for anyone. He's going to be a nightmare for Callum Smith on the inside, but he's got to get there. I made a good point in the presser that John Ryder's on a great run, and then Callum Smith made an even better point, which is I'm on a pretty good run as well. Both guys' confidence through the roof going into this fight, so I think you'll get a flowing fight. I think you're going to get a fight where Callum Smith's going to be going out trying to seek and destroy, and Ryder can't be too tensive. He's got to get stuck in, and he's got to let his hands go, because that's the chance he has is on the inside, and to let his hands go.
Now, on Callum's long-term future, I interviewed Callum before Presser started, and he said that he's definitely obviously got his next fight with yourselves. There's talk of one after that, but nothing long-term. What is your thoughts on that and Callum's long-term future with Matchroom?
You know, one of your questions to him was, is there a contract signed? I haven't had a contract with Callum Smith till about his third fight or his fourth fight. So a lot of these guys I work with, I haven't got the reputation of being an arsehole who has strung out court battles that will not let a fighter go and will try and do everything they can to bankrupt a fighter if I feel that they've left me or disrespect me. At the end of the day, if you want to leave, you're free to go, right? And some fighters are under contract, some fighters aren't. Tony Bellew, never had one contract with Tony Bellew, right? And I probably had the best relationship with him of any fighter. Kell Brook, never had a contract with Kell Brook, right? Because I believe this is the best place for you to be. If you don't think so, no problem. I've got enough money. Do you know what I mean? I want a good relationship. I want good events. I want good experiences. And I've had Callum Smith since his debut. So as far as I'm concerned, he ain't going anywhere. If he is, and he gets a massive offer, I'll look at it, I'll help him. And I think if I think it's the right thing to do, I'll pat his bum and say off you go. But our plans with Callum Smith is to go and have those career-defining fights. The only thing that really disrupted our relationship was the World Boxing Super Series. You know, we were in a great position. He went in the World Boxing Super Series. It was so good for him in the fact that he made a lot of money and won a world title, but bad in the fact that his profile suffered. But also, it was on ITV, box office, and I can't really be pushing it because I'm a Sky man. Do you know what I mean? So I'm telling you it's on, but I can't be out there blowing the trumpet saying buy ITV box office. So, you know, our relationship probably suffered a little bit in there, but it's always been very solid, and we've made it very clear to him that we want to push his career and make 2020 as big as possible and career defining, and that involves an Anfield fight. So our plan, you're quite right, our plan is a 2-fight plan at the moment, which is November 23rd and Anfield, because the Anfield fight will be such a tough fight that you can't really look beyond that anyway, because it's going to be Golovkin, Billy Joe Saunders, Benavidez. Canelo would be fantastic, but Jacobs, it's going to be a really, really tough fight. So our plan right now is 2 fights, but I think this is such an important fight because he needs to go and look good, but also get ready for a massive 2020, and these are the kind of fights you can slip up in.
If you go through the stable of fighters you promote, where does Callum rank with regards to being up there? Is he your number one with regards to what he's achieved and where he's?
I think in terms of status, you got commercial status and you got sort of achievements and boxing rankings, and you got Usyk right now, who's obviously been an undisputed world champion, who we represent. You got Estrada, who's a pound for pound star, who we represent. You got Golovkin, who's a pound for pound star that we represent. You got Andrade, who's arguably one of the top middleweights who we represent. You got Anthony Joshua, who's going for the unified world heavyweight title. And the list goes on and on. Billy Joe Saunders, who's a 2-weight world champion. But Callum Smith is, for me, right now, the number 1 super middleweight in the world. Can he beat the others? We'll find out. But right now, on paper, he is the number 1 super middleweight in the world. So, when you look at the fighters that we have who are number 1 in their division, Usyk, obviously now moved to heavyweight. Estrada, number 1 super flyweight in the world. Callum Smith, number 1 super middleweight in the world. Probably missed some out as well along the way. Devin Haney, number 1. He's one of our top fighters, and that's why it was so important to put this fight on Saturday Night Fight Night. He's a pay-per-view fighter, but you've got to set the boundaries, you've got to set the profile in place to go into 2020 at Anfield in pay-per-view fights. That is the plan for Callum Smith. But to do that, we've got to go to that audience on November 23rd. We've got to make sure he's on a big platform in a sold-out Echo Arena and build him into a big 2020.
Callum obviously doesn't have the profile that you would expect a number 1 in his division to have. Would you put it down to the fact that he entered that World Boxing Super Series that kind of hindered your maybe plan?
Yeah, a little bit, mostly. But also, look, he's never going to be the guy who's going to stand up there and start headbutting people and banging the desk and screaming and shouting. He's a scouser. So what you've got to do is, you never want a fighter to change. You just want them to be themselves. So a lot easier to sell in that respect. And everyone's got their own image. Callum Smith is a stand-up scouser. Great role model, great person, part of a fighting family which is just unseen in terms of achievements for 4 brothers. That is Callum Smith. It's not he's this loud, brash geezer who wears a load of jewellery, gets out of Rolls Royces and nightclubs at 3 o'clock in the morning. He's a quality family man and a great fighter with great fighting pedigree. And he's a proper scouser. That's how I sell Callum Smith. So, in one respect, his profile's never going to be a Floyd Mayweather or, an Adrian Broner. The other respect, the World Boxing Super Series, which, not being critical of the series, they were brilliant for Callum Smith. He got a world championship. He made a load of money. But he did box George Grove on a Friday night on a platform that probably did 30 or 40,000 buys. That should have been an 0-2 fight doing 500,000 or 600,000 buys. And he comes off of there a superstar. But you can't knock the series because it did a great job for Callum Smith. So that's why this night's important, because we've got to start saying, right, this is... And when you look on Sky, he should be one of those top Saturday night fighters, unless he's in a big undisputed or a unified fight when he's going to progress to box office.
Let's circle back to this card now, Eddie. Obviously enough of Callum. Chris Billam-Smith versus Craig Glover, a very good fight. Your thoughts on it?
They're the kind of fights that sometimes are actually make me the happiest to make. Spoke to Jake McGuigan and Shane McGuigan, and they were like, they've sparred before. Like, it was a brutal spar. He's just boxed Riakporhe. Probably should come back with a win. I said, guys, I'm not being funny. This is your opportunity. It's a 50-50 fight. You win this fight, you stay on Sky, you get another fight against Riakporhe or Coley. That's rolling the dice. Spoke to Bellew, who's got Craig Glover. Who else is there? I went, Tone, there is no one else, mate. This is the fight. So you want it or not? Sky Sports, Echo Arena, it's a big time. Both fighters, Bosch, were in. It's a brilliant cruiserweight fight. Probably be for the Commonwealth title. If a Coley wins the European, probably vacate that one. So it's a great fight. And, David Price, who's really come through, 3 wins. And like I said in the presser, I bumped into him in Ibiza. And with Pricey, it's always been like, MTK would say to me, Ed, tell us the biggest fights out there for Pricey. That's what he wanted. He wanted the biggest fights, the most money. It's not lie about it. He's thinking, look, I've been knocked out, got a chance, I've got to secure my family, give me the biggest fights. He's a prize fighter. But now, the mentality's changed, which is, do you know what? Like, my confidence is back. I'm feeling good. So let's have a proper fight on November 23rd. And if we go to Anfield, stick me in a monster, and I believe I'm going to win that fight. And he's so popular, Pricey. Now, how can you not love him? And the Scousers love him. Then you've got Tom Farrell against Sean Mashadod, which is just a Liverpool Birkenhead classic, going to sell loads of tickets. Fowler's going to be in a big fight, and he's going to be watching October 19th, Cheeseman against Fitzgerald, with bated breath. Thomas Whittaker, Hart, other Liverpool fighters as well. So going to be a big card, and no, there's nothing like a fight night in Liverpool, apart from maybe a fight night in Newcastle.
Or Birmingham.
Yeah, Birmingham doesn't
What's
really
happening
work
in
in Birmingham. It doesn't work. We never sell tickets in Birmingham. I don't know what it is. The fans get behind their fighters, but it never sells at the box office. I don't know. Really confusing. Yeah. Middle of the country. You'd think great catchment areas. Newcastle, on the other hand, Liverpool, even Manchester's flying. They're the cities where they really come out for the fight nights. So sorry, mate.
Just on David Price, who are you expecting to put him in with on November 25th?
Someone there or thereabouts in the world rankings. I mean, look, it's not going to be Povetkin and Usyk and these guys, but he needs to defend his title, probably similar to the level he's been boxing at, to be honest with you. Maybe a bit of a step up. And just enjoying seeing him enjoy himself and be full of confidence,
Just as we did touch on Birmingham there, Cal Yafai, you said that he was going to face Estrada next. What's the latest?
So looking at potentially December 14, I've got something planned for sort of mid-January, which is very, very special. But no one really likes boxing in mid-January because you miss out on Christmas. But tough, it's a unification fight. So I'm due to catch up with him this week, but his next fight will be against Estrada. That's the one. That's the unification fight. It's his moment of truth. He's made his money, he's had these defences, mandatory challenges. Now he's got to go for it and try and become a great. And that's the name of the game now.
Cal's received a bit of criticism over his last few fights, whether it be just because he couldn't get motivated, he wanted other belts and other unifications, etc. What have you made of his career and his progress since he beat Lewis Conception to pick up that belt?
I mean, look, as a super flyweight, incredible. Like, I know that he hasn't had the unifications and the career-defining nights yet, but he's defended the world title at Wembley or Millennium Stadium. Can't remember now. I think Millennium Stadium.
Was that Joshua Tackle?
Yeah. He's also defending his world title in Monaco. He's defended his world title in America, in Birmingham. They didn't defend it in Birmingham, did he? Did he really?
Was it Muranaka?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, Marinaka. That was his first defence.
Yeah, and then Ishida.
Yeah, and then recently in Providence, Rhode Island, and also, by the way, we've forgotten another one. He defended his title in Fresno.
Yeah.
On a top ranked show. They say it's an incredible career, and by the way, he's made a lot of money. For a super flyweight, he's made a lot of money. But one mandatory too many, because he got an injury last summer. He was going to fight for the WBO title against Nietes or whatever, and he couldn't do the fight. So that would have been the moment we had the unification. His hand was injured and he couldn't get out of his mandatory, so he had to fight his mandatory. So in terms of his career, he's had one mandatory too many. That should have been a unification. But it's okay. He waits 5 months. He's got Estrada. And that's coming on. He's going to make a lot of money. And he's got a chance in that fight. Estrada gets hit. Cow punches very hard. He's the underdog in that fight. But that's it, you know. And if he wins that fight, he fights another unification. And if he loses that fight, he probably moves to bantamweight and tries to win a world title there. So, you know, I think Cow's had an amazing career. And sometimes you go under the radar a little bit being super flyweight and boxing abroad. But you know, I think he's got to look at himself and be very proud of his performances. And you know, some have been tough. Stylistically, they've been very tough. Nothing's easy down in that weight. Look at Selby at the weekend. Yeah. You know, Selby's got so much talent. Ends up in a fight against a virtual journeyman, getting decked twice, and it's not easy. These boys are game.
Just want to get your thoughts on a couple of other fights before I do let you shoot off. David Avanesian stopping Kerman Laraga in the first round.
I think that was the biggest shoe-in of all time in winning that fight. You know, he wrecked him in the first fight, and he looked petrified in that fight, Laranja. And Avanesian is a tough guy who punches very hard, spiteful puncher. Josh Kelly's the mandatory now for Avanesian. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. That's a great fight that was talked about before. Tough fight for both. You know, I think Josh Kelly's got the style to beat him, but it's going to be an interesting fight if that gets made. I expect Josh to run out in November, December, and hopefully we can make that fight early next year.
You just mentioned Josh being a mandatory. Obviously, there was originally going to fight on the Brooks-Zarafa bill before Josh fell ill. But do you kind of look at that now and you see David's progression and kind of the noise that's being created around him, maybe think it was possibly a bit too soon for Josh? Or
no, because I think at the time he didn't have that progression, he didn't have that confidence, and I think it would have been a different fight to. I think it's a much tougher fight now. He's got that belief, he's got that confidence, and he's dangerous. But he was dangerous then. But this is an example of how quickly Josh Kelly's moving. You know, he wanted to fight Avanesian then. He fought Ray Robinson. These are top 15 guys. And I think sometimes Josh doesn't get the credit for that. But, you know, I think the Avanesian fight, whether it happens next, whether it happens in 2020, that's a fight that should happen because it's got history and it's got a little bit of spite.
And Golovkin, Derevyanchenko, you mentioned it earlier on. Your thoughts on it?
I think it's a great fight. I mean, look, we all know sometimes Gennady gets hit too much, but he'll walk through walls and he'll put you through a wall. And I think Golovkin against Derevyanchenko has all the signs of a great fight because Derevyanchenko is called the technician. He was a great fighter. He's very good technically, but you just get walked down and cut off against Gennady Golovkin, and there's nowhere to run. So you have to stand with him and you have to trade with him, and that's probably one of the most dangerous things in the world to do. So I think Golovkin Derevyanchenko this weekend is going to be brilliant from the Garden, and also our young man Israel Madrimov, who's going to go 4-0 hopefully, and fighting top guys. You know, this is a guy, he wants a world title now. He's like a spitting image of Gennady Golovkin, but 154 pound. Great talent.
Nigel Benn announcing his comeback last week against Bika. What are your thoughts on Nigel's decision?
I've got so much respect for Nigel Benn. I don't have the right to criticise what he wants to do with his life. Do I like it? No, I don't like it, and I don't think it should be happening. It certainly shouldn't be happening against Bika. I mean, you've got the odds come out today. Bika's 5-1 on to win the fight, which tells you Nigel Benn basically can't win the fight. So if you're having your little swan song, why are you doing it in a fight like that? Especially against a style like Bika. It's horrible to watch, and he's awkward and he's dirty, you know. But again, Nigel Benn is a legend. I love him. I love Conor. And if this is what he has to do, then let him do it. But for me, you know, it's I'm not mad on it.
I mean, Conor mentioned that he lives on the back of your house, so at least you'll be able to have some dinner with him.
I saw him walking the dog the other day in the village. I was like, what are you doing? He says, I live here now, so there's time to move out. Now, Conor's a great kid, training really hard, improving all the time. And, you know, he's a fine young man that carries himself very well.
Just on Conor, before I do let you shoot off, final question, I promise. What is the latest with regards to his opponent update for?
So we'll be announcing it this week. He'll be defending his title as well. Good opponent. Tried to get Johnny Garton, couldn't make that fight happen. But he's there, he wants all these tough fights now. So October 26th, and then probably try and get him out one more time.
Well, Eddie, and as always, I appreciate your time. Thanks for speaking to myself on Boxing Social.
Cheers, mate.